All right, so welcome to the Fish Hunt Eat Pondcast. Yes, we're going to call it the Pondcast because you can probably see the pond in the background. We had intentions of setting out by the pond, but had a little bit of rain move in, so we thought we better bring it inside. So this is our first episode of the Pondcast. Today, I've got my friend and owner and operator of Melton Hill Bill's Guide Service, Billy Davis, here with me today. Billy, I appreciate you joining me.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. So we're going to talk about something that is kind of near and dear to both of us. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a fishing guide. So there may be a lot of you out there that are thinking about starting a guide service. Well, we're going to give you the ins and outs of it. So stick around and we're going to jump right into it. So Billy, tell us how you got started fishing and how you became a fishing guide.
How I became a fishing guide. Well, it goes way back. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll start 20 years old. College. I've always loved to fish. Everybody loves to fish. You know, back in the 90s and stuff. Yeah, we all did the bass fishing deal and enjoyed catching fish. But you'd always hear tales. I grew up West Knoxville, went to Carnes High School, pretty close to the Bull Run steam plant. So at one time, I think the world record striper came out of Bull Run steam plant, caught by a kid in the 80s.
Yeah. So
you always hear about them, the rockfish, the giant rockfish. And then, of course, there was Norris, which was north of us. My dad would walleye fish. I guess he took us out jigging mandlures for walleyes and landed a 43-pound striper back in the day. Yeah, it was.
That's a big one.
Fish was as big as I was. And I always had that in the back of my mind that, man, I'm just intrigued by these giant fish. So fast forward, I guess 2002, when I graduated from the University of Tennessee, I got a job out in Oak Ridge. So I drive by the Bull Run steam plant every single day. And that was kind of the heyday back then. Through the grapevine, I heard there were some unintentional stockings on Melton Hill. So there was a lot of stripers in Melton Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess back, then they would run the steam plants, the water, the discharge would be warm. It'd be a lot warmer than it is now. So those fish would really pile up in there. So I would drive by, just see the birds and the fish blowing up, and started fishing it kind of religiously.
Yeah.
Every single day, before work, after work, go down there. And what these guys do would float skipjacks. The skipjacks would pile up in there, and they'd free line skipjacks, and caught a lot of fish. As a 22-year-old kid just wearing out these 30 to 50 pound fish.
That's awesome.
And I really got into this. So I joined the Striper Club. 23 years old, and there were fishing guides in there, and a couple of them are still around. But I was like, man, these guys fish for a living.
Yeah.
And most of them they'd fish a couple of places. They'd be on North Lake or below the dams. And, I was like, well, nobody's guiding these steam plants. So that was always in the back of my head is, man, if somebody only targeted the big fish, there might be a niche for that. Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of, man, do I really want to do this? This is something I'm really interested in. I'm passionate about it. We caught 30 to 50 pound fish well before we ever caught 10 pound fish.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I had a network of buddies, and we'd go out, and then we started to say, well, we've got big fish at this steam plant. Where else are they? So we put together kind of a year-round pattern of, the fish migrate, and we're going to migrate with them.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where it all started. I guess around 2004, 2005. Started catching muskies at that Bull Run steam plant. So not only did we have the giant stripers, then we had a totally different species that nobody else was targeting.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, we were in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have a girlfriend. Every single day we just get up and go fish. That's what, and it just kept getting to the point, just grew and grew and grew. And this was the time we had the flip phones come out, so you could actually catch a fish, take a picture on your flip phone, and then you send it to your buddies. You take it to your buddies, and all of a sudden, word gets out.
Yeah.
Man, we're on some giant fish, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And there was a Musky Club that kind of started up, and we met at Gander Mountain.
Ah,
And yeah, we'd meet once a month, and it was pretty cool. We'd have little tournaments and stuff. And a lot of the guys in that Musky Club, they were from up north, Wisconsin, Chicago.
yeah, yeah.
And a lot of them moved down here, and we musky fished. It's about the time the internet was really taking off. So I told the guys in the club, I said, we need a website. Those old timers didn't care about the internet. They didn't know anything about the internet.
Uh-huh.
I was like, well, I took it upon myself and started tnmuskies.org. Just a small.
I remember
little,
that.
Yeah,
I
just had a
remember.
little discussion group.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
we'd get up every evening. I'd get home and we'd have a little chat box. I'd set this thing up and, just get on there and just talk musky fishing.
Yeah,
Because my biggest fear is that if we didn't promote the musky fishing, it'd go away.
yeah,
Quit
for
stopping.
sure, for sure.
So we get on there and show pictures and just start discussing. And then, people from up north started chiming in and, we had a little thing going. Over time, people said, well, who's the local musky guy? We want to get in on some of this.
There you
I'll do
go,
it.
open door.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll be the guide.
That's awesome.
I started when I had a little 16-foot low jet boat. That's all, just start taking people on it. And, we went out and had some fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I'd take some of these guys that couldn't cast. Or,
Oh, yeah.
It was a struggle. And I said, well, how about we try some of them stripers?
Yeah.
And I would take some of these guys out that, I said, oh, man, this is way funner because the skipjacks.
Yeah.
The action.
Oh, yeah.
So, I started, this was 2006, probably about 2006 when I first started taking people out. Floating skipjacks, on balloons. It's the same stuff I do today.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's bloomed into a really successful guide service.
Yeah,
And I pretty much do the same thing I did as a 22-year-old.
that's awesome.
Sit on we'll tie our boat off to the bank and put our balloons out. And
Yeah,
what works 25 years ago still works for this today.
that's
So,
right. That's crazy how
Yeah.
things still work.
It is.
Same thing you used to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, back in
And
the day.
sometimes you find yourself trying to do too much.
Yeah,
Let's just go back to the basics.
right.
Pull our boat up on the bank and
Yeah.
just sit still. And it's like 22 years old again. Just
Yeah,
catching fish and having a good time. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's been a lot of fun, man. I've enjoyed every single day of it. Not every day's perfect,
That's right.
but when you get somebody that's 80 years old and saying this is the biggest fish I've ever caught.
Yeah, makes it all worth
Oh
it.
yeah, sure does. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So Billy's probably the hardest working guide that I have ever met. You even started fishing for tarpon down in Florida. now.
yeah, always
Yeah.
looking for that next crazy bite. And
That's right.
that tarpon fishing's it. When I was in college, we took a class down in the Keys. We studied coastal geology, the coral reefs and stuff, and we went snorkeling. And when I jumped out, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the Florida Keys or anything, but I jumped it. We went snorkeling, and I went down, and we had the little disposable underwater cameras back then, and I just
Yeah.
started snapping pictures of these 7-foot long tarpons swimming by. And I
That's
was like,
pretty cool.
that is a giant skipjack.
Yeah, exactly.
That is like
exactly.
the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was just swimming with fish that eyeballs that are bigger than this microphone. So, when I came back, I was just always intrigued because I had these prints of these fish.
Yeah.
Like, man, I really want to do that one day. Well, life happens. Here it is 20 years later.
Yeah.
I meet my wife, and I said, let's just go to the Keys. So we went down there, and we actually booked a tarpon charter.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I just want to see how they do it. So we get down there, and I wanted to do, this was in July, so I wanted to do a half-day tarpon charter. Because I always heard that the morning bite was the best thing to do. So we get out there, and we get down there, and I call the guy. I said, hey, I'm ready to do this tarpon charter. He said, yeah, meet me about 9:30. I was like, oh my gosh, 9:30 in the Keys,
Yeah.
in July.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be miserably hot. So we get out there. I was like, who am I to joke? I mean, who am I to question this guy? He's
Right.
the guide. So we get out there, and we get out to the spot, and I look in his tank, and he's got like 10 baits. I was like, oh, great. Here I'm coming. I'm usually trying to get 20 to 30 baits.
Right.
So we get out there. We hook up on 2 or 3 tarpon. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then it's over with. 20 minutes into the trip, I was like, oh shoot, they're done. I said, midnight, we got here at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I like to run my trips. So I was so we went out, and then he took us all around, and we went to these bridges and stuff, and we spent 10 minutes in each bridge span. They're 50 foot long or whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked the guy, I said, you ever heard of life scope? No.
Yeah.
He never heard of it. And I was like, oh crap. So at the very end of the trip, we went to one more spot. My wife catches a small tarpon, brings it to the boat. This guy unhooks the tarpon and says, oh, that's a tiny one, and lets it go. We don't even get a picture of it.
Oh, no.
So that was kind of like, okay,
yeah,
I can do this myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's going. That's going to be the future endeavor.
That's awesome.
I ran a couple already down there and had a good time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to do it, but never satisfied.
Yeah.
I'm
absolutely.
always looking for something fun to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you say, and I heard horror stories before when I was a guide. Mm-hmm. I'd have clients get on the boat and tell me stories about they had booked with this guide or that guide, and the guide just would kick his feet up and put some rods out and kick his feet up and say, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And didn't hardly work. And that's, it makes you wonder, what exactly some of these guys are doing out on these guide trips.
Yeah. My ultimate goal is to have them come back.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have some guys you jive with, some guys you don't, some guys that might be too intense, some guys don't like the way I might have to bark orders at them. Some, everybody's different, but I have a lot of guys that have been coming with me for 10, 12 years now. Right.
When they become friends, they become your buddies.
And they're the ones that I will call them and say, hey, you seriously ought to, consider this because I've stumbled upon this bite or this bite. And I think that's the key, just building those relationships. So, and I get guys that will only book trips based off the salooner tables. Yeah. They've come to, I've kind of educated them and say, they will book a year out on these days because, the sun and the moon it's time to go.
Yeah.
But, weather trumps the moon phases, but you can pick those good days 2 or 3 days before a full or new moon. Those days do get booked up.
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny how there is a lot of science involved with fishing. It's way more involved than a lot of people realize. So.
Well, that's what I used to tell guys, you about have to be a meteorologist.
Or a geologist.
Yeah. And everything.
That's, going back to my schooling, that's one thing that they kind of drill in your head is, Earth is cyclical. You have cyclical patterns. Yeah. And a lot of these fish have evolved to, they react to the time of the year, and especially stripers, so you have a migration pattern. So do a lot of the bait fish. Yeah. So if you can just put all that together, it's more than just going out and fishing. You have to do a lot of your homework, and that's kind of one thing that I've learned is, you can look at all these factors, and they're going to kind of dictate where the fish should be. Yeah. And they got to eat. Oh, yeah. And, they have to eat bait fish, so have to find where the bait fish is at. And like I said, there's a whole science to all this. So everything moves up and down, and now with technology, you can see a lot of it. But, back before we had any of that, it was, lots of trial and tons of error. Yeah. That's what people see. They see the pictures, but they don't realize all the failures that has gone on to, to get things where they are, so...
Well, yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people don't understand is the difficult side of it. What all is behind the scenes. Yeah. Sometimes you go out on a great trip and it looks easy to them.
And with me doing the skipjack deal, I'm not bragging, but I'm the first guy that could ever keep them alive. Yeah. Through trial and error, figured out a bait system that works, keeps them overnight, and because. There's times where I knew when I opened up my bait tank and I could just tell the skipjacks might have been alive, but they weren't what I needed them to be. It's like, we're going to have a tough day. Yeah, yeah. But over time, you kind of perfect that. How much salt, how much temperature you have to keep that water at. Yeah. You have to, know how much water you need to change and what size skipjacks you can use. There's a ton to it. Right. I've kind of done all the homework I can, and it's worked out really good because there's nothing better than using the fresh bait. Right. I learned that in the Striper Club they would use gizzards and threadfin and alewives, but the fresher the bait, the better. I just apply that to skipjack. So you know how much salt you need to put in your tank for optimal,
Yeah.
bait, because down the road, it is the key.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fresh bait. That's one of my mentors, an old guy, used to guide up on Cherokee. I was going fishing with him one day. Next morning, I'd got up and I loaded my bait tank up with alewives at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And he pulls up to the docks, picked me up, and I'm like, man, I got a tank full of bait for us. And he said, when did you catch them? I said, last night. He said, man, I'd feel better about us catching bait this morning. And I'm like, really?
Well, he knows.
Exactly.
And he probably was, how did you catch your bait?
Right.
Some guys catch my net, and some guys will use sabiki rigs. The same kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He wants to ensure that you're doing it his way, and I want to do it my way too.
Exactly. 100%.
I don't want to brag, but yeah, sometimes even guys with skipjacks, they could be right next to me.
Yep.
And if their bait's not seasoned,
exactly.
They're watching us catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'll never forget one guide trip I had. I had a guy and his daughters. I had caught a tank fly. I got up at like 4 a.m. and caught them. Caught those alewives. Thought they were going to be nice and fresh. They looked good to me.
Yeah.
Fish wouldn't touch them.
Yeah.
I had to dump the tank, run back. I luckily found some gizzard shad. We got out and went through a whole tank of bait. It was just that much of a difference. It was just.
And a lot of times on all my trips, first thing we do is go out catching bait, just like in the ocean. Sometimes if we're running like in the summertime, I have to catch them the evening before. I'll do that. But one thing about using these skipjacks is certain times of the year, like if you catch skipjacks in the summertime, the thread fin are too big for them to eat.
Yeah.
So they have to run and go find other sources of food where you'll find them in areas where there's no bait. They're real skinny.
Yeah.
They keep a lot better.
Yeah.
The ones you catch in the wintertime that have been gorging on threadfin, they're hard to keep sometimes because they're like me. They got a belly full and they can't really, they don't really do that good.
Yeah. Never really thought about that. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's it. If they're sitting there gorging on shad all day long, they'll mess all over the place and, but if they're eating bugs, they're so much easier to catch and, like I said, they're definitely less messy. So there's a lot goes into it,
Oh yeah, a lot into it. And it's what all is involved as far as licenses, insurance.
There is a whole business side aspect to this fishing. It is. I mean, if you want to do it legit,
right?
So when you say you want to try to go get a deal with a clothing company or a rod and reel company, they're going to want to see EINs. They're going to want to see your business license. They want to see, your captain's license. So if you want to be a serious fishing guide, you have to treat it like a serious business.
Yeah.
And, that's, I have some guys say, are you insured? And I was like, yeah, I am. Just don't sue me. But I am insured. I have insurance. So, and I say this all the time, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah. 100%.
Anybody that's successful in business, you got to do it the right way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here in the state of Tennessee, I guess, I don't know, it was 12 years ago because they started cracking down on all the guides. Yeah. Making sure everybody had their captain's license. I got a letter. Yeah. And they didn't care if you were guiding anywhere. Said, it's all federal waterways. So I was like, well, time to get that captain's license. Right. So, I signed up and took the True Course captain's license, and you kind of think it's stupid at the time, but when you're done, you're like, man, I'm sure glad I got this because I feel like I'm way better prepared to take people I don't know out on these dangerous waters. Yeah, and it's very important now that we stay on top of this captain's license, and it just looks good. Oh yeah, 100%. I'm licensed, insured, I'm drug tested. This crazy thing is like I had to pass this physical. I had to lose 35 pounds because my blood pressure was way up. I stay stressed about doing all this all the time. It is a full-time job with no help. So my blood pressure got way up, so I got on meds and was able to bring everything down. But just staying stressed about everything. As you get older, I'm 45 now. So rocking and rolling every single day. Go to bed at 11, wake up at 4 every single day. You got to take care of yourself. But you get the physical, you pass the, get your captain's license. You can take people out, and you can make a decent living doing it.
Yeah.
But you have to maintain everything you do.
Exactly.
There are, I told you this earlier. There is no PTO as a fishing guide.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And that's the part I don't miss. It's getting up at 4 a.m, not having any time off, and and everything, and and you've got equipment too. Your rods and reels. It's a lot of stress on rods and reels to get used every day. And
I used to have some deals with some companies and stuff, but the gear wasn't what I needed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's nice to have free rods and reels, but if you have boxes of broken rods and reels that don't make it through a season, so I kind of I was like, well, I'm going to sponsor myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done. I've went out, paid whatever it took.
Exactly.
I look at some of these brand new Tarpon rods and reels. I got to look at it and be like, well, I'm going to have to run 3 trips, to pay for my gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just look at it that way. It's not, I don't have backers or, trust funds or anything like that.
Exactly.
I am a hillbilly.
Yeah.
I'm an educated hillbilly that loves to fish, and I do not like my gear breaking on me.
Right.
So, I buy way more than I need to. Big Fish Outfitters loves me because I am always in there picking up stuff. I have boxes of hooks because you never know. I mean, a tackle box may disappear out of your boat.
Yeah.
I've got another one hidden. It's full of stuff. I've got, you got to be prepared for it because you never know what's going to happen.
Right. Right. You
got to have backups for your backups.
Yeah.
So that's what I have,
Yeah. Yeah.
People, every now and then I'll post a picture of my building and said, oh, you don't need that much gear. Yeah, you do when you're fishing for 15 different types of fish. So, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's just one of them deals where I am kind of an addict.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a gear snob. I've got to, I see something and it's like, oh man, I don't really need this. But hey, if I just run 2 more trips this week, and that's what it takes is, I'm to the point now where I've kind of slacked off. April and May, I'm running 6 days a week. I'm not running that 7. I'm not fishing Saturdays.
Yeah.
I might, but but you have to. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it the best you can.
Yeah.
My dad's a heat and air guy, and he's always loved to walleye fish, but he works 7 days a week to get what he's got. So that's what it takes. You got to make hay while the sun's shining.
That's right.
I don't know how long I can physically be able to do this, but I'm gonna give it everything I got.
Right.
And that's what it really takes. You can't half-ass this.
Right. Your heart's got to be in it. Your heart's got to be in it all the way. And
I just feel like I always want to be the first guy there. I want to be the first person with the boat ramp.
Yep.
Well, it may be the first to leave too if we go out there and have a bang-up day.
Yeah.
We go out and catch a lot of fish.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys say, "Man, you're done at noon." I was like, "Oh, we caught 4 35-pounders." I mean, do you really want to sit out there for another 3 hours and not catch anything?
Right.
But if you understand how these fish work, and that's, I know I don't know everything, but, I've been fishing enough to know that there's a feeding period. When that feeding period's done, they're done.
Yeah.
And, now with the live scope, you can actually watch them. You can see that, and it's based off the sun and the moon, but also the angle of the sun. And, these fish, they're not too much different than me or you. I mean, they'll feed, and then when they're full, they'll sit down.
Yeah.
Now, I have some buddies that used to, they would snorkel or they would dive on Norse. And they said, yeah, we'd see the stripers, just kind of chilling out. And they said, but when they went to feed, they'd come by, and it was pretty neat to sit there and watch them hunt and stuff. And so it's, it's fascinating the way that things are. And, it is kind of neat just to try to figure it out and put some science, biology, try to understand, what they're doing. So when you run this guided trip and you go out there and they do what you want them to do, you look, it makes my job a lot easier.
Yep.
So just, having good gear, having the bait the way you want it, and then most importantly is having that boat that will get you there
Right.
300 days a year. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, I can't go out and buy a new boat every year like some of these guys do. I can't do it. You know, if I was to get a boat deal, they sure as hell wouldn't want it after I had it for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, the places I fish, as rough as I am, people hop in my boat and be like, "How old is this boat?" I was like, 3 years. You know, I bought it in 2020, and this, you know, it's the fourth season. And I said, this boat looks like it's 30 years old. You know, I was like, well, I'm rough on it. You know,
All right. Yeah, it gets used every
how many
day.
people do you know will take a John boat, pull it 1,000 miles down to the Keys? You know, but I did that because I rented a boat down there one time. I was like, I'm going to go try this tarpon fish. I'm just going to rent a boat. There's no trolling motor on the boat. You know, I was like, well, this sucks. I don't want to anchor because I've been on that. I've seen what happens when people just try to anchor and catch tarpon. That's not going to work. You need a trolling motor. So I was like, well, I guess I'm taking the old John boat down there. So it is funny. I have I've been down probably 6 times now. And,
Wow.
And really, you know, this, but you got to maintain that thing. Bearings.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I was. I'm a little sore because I was crawled up under my trailer yesterday. You know, I'm pretty religious on feeling the bearings, and you know, and I've got the vault hubs that are supposed to go 100,000 miles. They're not going to go 100,000 miles.
Well, you're constantly hauling a bait, taking full of water,
Yeah,
and all this gear and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot on those
yeah,
bearings.
it is. It sure is. But you just got to stay up on that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so much into guiding that people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm busy at it. I know I'm not the best at maintaining everything, but you know, you do what you can.
Right.
You know, I've actually got 2 trailers. I've got a backup trailer just in case. You know, I had my aluminum trailer develop some cracks, so you know, had to pull out the old steel trailer. Thank goodness I didn't sell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure.
you know, I actually have a backup boat. If something was to happen with my big boat, I've got another one ready to go. Because, you know, there's nothing worse than having somebody come from Oklahoma, you know, or North or South Carolina, and you have to cancel the trip. That, you know, nobody wants to catch fish more than I do.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way I look at it. You know, you put everything you can into it, you know, and I'm always looking for ways to improve. That's never being satisfied. I think that's because, you know, if some guys, they've been coming with you for 5 or 6 years and you offer the same, you know, the same services, yeah, they might go look and do something else. You know, and I hate that. You know, I enjoy it. Yeah. So I try to mix it up. And that's why I started, you know, just doing the Florida thing or doing some of this other stuff, trying to go out and find fish in other lakes. But, you know, that means travel. You know, we'll travel, you know, wear and tear on the boat and truck and, you know, so.
For sure. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
On the business side of things, how does weather affect you? You talked about having to cancel a trip.
Okay, I am never going to force people to go fishing.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a deal with Sims where I've got 5 of the best rain suits made. You know, I went out and bought 5, you know, rain suits. So if somebody doesn't have one, I'm going to give them a rain suit. Or if they just don't really want to, I'm not going to be like, you have to pay me for the day. I can't do. I'm not that way. I mean, some guys are, and I get it. If you're a seasonal guide and you're only fishing so many months a year, I get it. Yeah, you know, you'll never get that day back. Me being a full year-round fishing guide, I get a day off. You know, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
but I also try to be, you know, fair with people. You know, I don't want to be a jerk. Sometimes, you know, most of the time you can get the fishing in. You know, that's one. And one thing, you know, sometimes I tell people, man, the rainy days are sometimes some of the best.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you get there before that front blows through, before it rains, sometimes. But you know.
Yeah. That's some of the best top water fishing I've ever had.
And you can see it. You know, there's a whole science of why fish, you know, feed prior to fronts and stuff like that. And you try to explain it to people. I say, guys, you know, it's coming, but the bait will be coming to the top. The fish are going to be real active, and you know, you can have some of the craziest fishing ever. And I try to explain it to people. I said, just because there's 80% chance of rain doesn't mean, you know, you ought to come on out. So, but, you know, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make somebody happy. I mean, and some people appreciate me being honest. I tell people all the time, it's like, man, it's just too muddy. Let's do it again another time. So,
yeah. When and do you have you fish multiple lakes?
Mm-hmm.
When it does get muddy, because muddy water a lot of times will shut stripers. Now I'm sure musky shut them down too.
It will, but if you have an understanding of how these systems work, like there will be slugs of mud. Mm-hmm. Like the bottom of the lake may be muddy, but if they're running north, that water upstream is going to be clear. So if you have an understanding, you can a lot of times say, hey, we'll find green water.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I said, hey, the stripers may not be going, but I know where some muskies are.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can do that and then you can make it work. I mean, I did that last week. You know, it was one of them deals where the stripers, they tend to, when the water gets, say it's 48 degrees, the stripers' metabolism will slow down where they won't take that skipjack. They'll look at it, but they won't hit it. They won't eat it. But they will hit Alabama rig.
Yeah.
So, we kind of mix it up. But one thing I've noticed is the muskies will eat. They'll eat a skipjack when it's 44 degrees. Huh. So it's, just having an understanding of the fish and what they do and give people options. I mean, there's not too many people that catch a muskie and be like, oh, I wish this was a striper. Or the other way around, So the guys throwing the glide bait for the muskies and catch a striper, So it's good to have options.
Yeah, that's one thing. I actually converted some guys over to catfish.
Mm-hmm.
Had striper trips booked, and something would happen. The river get muddy or something. I'm like, guys, I got a backup plan. Let's go. Let's go put you on some big blues.
You got to have plan A, B, and C if you're going to pull it out, because that's getting skunked happens, and I hate it. But if you can offer them something else,
right?
And that's what I always try to do too. So just But the thing about it is just putting forth the effort and having an understanding of what should happen. If you have to understand the biology and the fish's patterns and stuff, if you can do that, and then what's cool about live scope is you can sit there and look at your bait and you can see the fish coming up to them. Scoping it out and see these things are just in a negative mode. They're curious.
They're looking,
but they're not going to eat.
Yeah.
So, but if you do all that and then you correlate it, say, well, it's kind of a bad moon phase, or you got northeast winds, that's why they're not eating. If you can explain it to people, and then you say, hey, come back, and that's usually what I do. Say we have a bad trip, I say, come back, book another day with me, and then I'll give you a day. So that way, it works out good for everybody. So you're going to give them another chance, and you still will get paid for the other, the next time they come. So it's not a total loss. Right. But I tell you what, man, I can do lots of things, but I still can't make them bite every single day.
That's right, yeah.
We're after the biggest fish in the lake, but one thing, I am going to give you a chance.
Right. That's right. That's right. So you've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What is the craziest guide trip or experience that you've had?
Craziest? Oh my gosh. I don't know. There are so many. Shoot. I don't know. We've had days where it's just nonstop fish, topwater fish. I don't know. I had a water spout about to take me out back in the Keys. That was pretty wild. That was pretty wild. But I was able to get away from it. Be honest with you, I mean, I've, and it's not the craziest thing, but I've taken people on their last fishing trips.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's kind of stuck out. Like I've taken people, and the next day they're no longer with us.
Yeah.
So, and you can almost tell that there's something wrong. But fortunately, we have, besides just catching giant fish, it's been pretty straightforward. And not too many surprises. I did see a guy hit a log one time and knock his motor off. That was pretty bass boat. We were fishing Bull Run Creek, and we were sitting there catching skipjacks, and here comes this bass boat flying. I said, man, I hope those guys don't come in here. And they started around that turn, and all of a sudden that boat does a 360. They had hit a log and knocked their motor off, and it was just hanging by the hydraulic steering. And I went over there, and they were kind of shook up. And I said, you guys are lucky to be alive. And they didn't have the kill switch on or anything.
Oh, no.
But luckily,
Yeah.
I was like, man,
Grief.
he could have threw you out. But he said he just glanced down at his phone and just hit a log. And I said, man, so I towed him all the way back to Solway, and that was pretty wild.
Yeah.
It makes you think, though, man. You really gotta pay attention.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, you take it for granted a lot of times, but we've all hit logs and stuff. But my boat, well, I won't go 55. I can't go 45. But yeah, it's just being safe on the water. Luckily, it's been pretty uneventful. I don't do any of that tail race below Fort Loudon Dam. I think I book a lot of trips because I tell people I'm not going to do that.
Right.
You know, I have found that you don't have to risk your life to catch big fish.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
A lot of times, I mean, when you're after 40-pound fish, who cares how many? I mean, we're after that one good bite.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you're further downstream or not even up near any of that stuff. So
yeah.
Don't have any too exciting stories, but yeah, that's a good thing though.
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
Oh,
that's I quit guiding below the dams back when I was still guiding because it just got. I actually had a lady one day. Her and her husband were fishing, and bite was great below the dams, but people can get nervous, and she was really nervous. She finally, after we did maybe 2 drifts, she sat down and with tears in her eyes and said, "I can't do this." And that was like, okay, something's got to change.
It's definitely not worth it. It's not for everybody, you know. And I'm just afraid if they keep it up, they're going to shut off. They're going to block off the dams like they do in a lot of other states. And I hate to see that because, you know, you can go out there and catch fish and have a good time. And with those barriers, you know, I mean, it will block off fishing. You know, if anything, I just wish they would kind of limit fishing below the dams with the floodgates on.
Right, yeah.
But
it seems like every year you hear of somebody dying.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to pull up a dead body. No, so I just stay away from it.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other places to go catch big fish away from the crowds. And, you know, I don't like playing bumper boats. You know, I've already been in enough confrontations over the years. I've probably got a negative name, you know, with a lot of guys. But, you know, it just comes down to, you know, my bait's getting chased on a balloon and it goes 150 foot away from the boat. I don't want, you know, it's just how I fish. Yeah. So we have, you know, learned to try to get away from people, and, you know, it's worked out really well the way I do things, and definitely enjoy it and hope to, you know, continue to find more and more places. You know, sometimes when there's a bunch of crowds, it does force you to get out and, you know, and go find new stuff, and that's rewarding. You know, even, you know, being after for 25 years, you can still, you know, go out and find some new stuff, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't have to follow me around, or there's what my shirt says, fish it all.
That's right.
Yeah.
So. That's one thing about being a guide too. People figure out your boat. Yeah. I started guiding on Cherokee. Those guys up there, we had some of the old timers.
Well, and that's what they do. I mean, and when I was in the Strapper Club, you know, back in the early 2000s, they all played bumper boats. They get on the phone with each other and play bumper boats. And then they would come to Melton Hill, and I'd be in the club, and they want to do that to me. Well, I'm sitting there trying to float a skipjack that wants to swim away from the boat.
He's going to swim where he wants.
And then, you know, and I tell the guys, I say, man, let's not play bumper boats. And then I get labeled, you know, whatever. And it's not, I want everybody to catch fish and have fun, but don't screw up my fishing because you want to come sit right next to me. Because when they're on my skipjacks, they're not going to touch your gizzard shell. And, you know, I would tell people that, and I get labeled as an a-hole. But it's just a matter of fact. I got better bait than you, and I'm not going to tell you where I got it. You know, it's me being selfish. That's whatever. You know, because I figured out a bunch of this stuff on my own, and kind of like to keep it that way. But that's why you can go to some of these spots, and you still have 40 to 50 pound fish.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Because I let them go, but you know, some of these other guys may not. You know, so you got to be careful on who you take, and do a little bit of research. You know, if you know, and I try not to be, but anytime you see, some of the North and South Carolina guys, you might say, hey, you know, and I always just tell people up front, man, we're not keeping these fish. And I've lost several trips. People want to keep them. I said, well, you can go with so-and-so. He'll take you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anybody that really understands knows that, man, this is kind of a special place.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes,
100%.
you know, we caught one last night. It's 48 pounds. I mean, the guy asked me, said, how old is that fish? I don't know, 15, 17 years old.
Been there a while.
Yeah. They don't grow overnight.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something we've always, you know, even going back to my muskie days, we've always preached catch and release. You know, my dad, he's got freezer full of fish, you know, and he's a walleye guy, and that's, you know, more of a put and take. But the stripers, you know, especially in these middle reservoirs where they can get to 50 pounds, let them swim.
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
It wasn't always the most popular, you know, opinion to have coming up as a young striper guy telling people, so we're letting them go, because I was probably one of the only ones that would. You know, everybody else was going on Norris and Cherokee and below the dams, you know, but my background in geology, I worked, like I said, out in Oak Ridge, and that's what we did was contaminant migration of, you know, mercury and PCBs and stuff like that would get spilled from Oak Ridge and then make its way to the Clinch River. There's a reason why there's signs that say don't eat these stripers.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a 22-year-old, nobody wanted to listen to old Billy Davis saying, he's telling me not to eat these fish. What the hell does he know? Well, I kind of do it for a living.
Yeah.
You know, you sit there and talk to some of these guys and you're like, I've been eating these fish my whole life, and you can almost tell that maybe they got some mercury down the road, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. They're starting to get a nervous twitch. So.
Yeah. Enunciation is difficult sometimes. You get a little bit too much mercury. But, you know, it's just one of these deals where, I care about the fishery. Now it's my career, my job, my livelihood. Yeah, I'm all swimming.
Yeah.
You know? But I also don't want somebody to come down 10 years down the road and be like, hey, you know, I took these fish to my family and they ended up getting some mercury poisoning over a fish that you knew was contaminated, you know.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to get sued over that. So it's
not at all.
But we live in a special place. You know, I tell people, I said, watch that movie Oppenheimer. I said the uranium that was enriched to make the atomic bomb was done right across 3 miles from Milton Hill Dam. You know, so people don't realize, man, they put the signs up. Let's just catch them and let them go and enjoy it, man.
That's right.
That's it. So,
that's the name of the game, and to have those fish there for future generations.
Oh yeah.
To catch.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of these fish, a lot of these 40 and 50 pounders, they could have been caught before. Sometimes you'll catch them and you can see there's a hook mark. You say, oh yeah, somebody's had this, or his lips, you know, have been ripped. It's like, hey, he survived.
Yeah.
You know. And you don't always know if you catch a fish if he's going to live, but I guarantee you, if you let him go, he's got a chance. Right. Especially in this cool water system we have. So, you know, it's a very unique situation we have here. We have year-round cold water. The fish can get to 50, 60 pounds. Let's let them swim, give them a chance, and, you know, go out and have a chance, catch them again.
Right.
So.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
So, Billy, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being my guest today.
Yeah.
A lot of awesome information there, and I hope you guys that are thinking about being a fishing guide, you're going to think long and hard, because there's a whole lot more to it than just going out on a boat and catching fish. Just because you can catch fish doesn't mean you have what it takes to be a fishing guide. But there are some rewards to it. Like Billy said, you know, seeing somebody catch the biggest fish of their life, that makes it worth it. That's what makes it fun. So thanks for tuning in and watching our first episode of the Pondcast. We hope to have more in the future, and we'll see you then. Thanks.